What if we could go back in time and remake the original Doctor Who stories with the original cast and sets, but with modern technology in full HD or even 4K and in glorious colour? This is something that I've been thinking of for quite a while, probably since I saw An Adventure in Space and Time kind of do just that. So I was a bit surprised last year when the BBC released the Daleks in Colour for the 60th. Now that the dust has settled on the anniversary year, the DVD, Blu-ray and Steelbook have finally dropped, and I'm going to take a look at them. Are they worth the hype? Was the programme worth watching? Or did the editors go too crazy with their razors? Let's find out as we go beyond the sofa. Let's dive headfirst into the technicolour world of the Daleks in Colour. As a long-standing devotee of the TARDIS and all of its adventures, and someone who spent years watching and re-watching every frame of Doctor Who, this was always going to be interesting. And there's no doubt that this release has been a topic of hot debate amongst fans. Would this be a step too far from its classic roots, or a triumphant revival for a modern age? Very quickly before we start, I want to announce my participation in GameBlast 24. This is the UK's largest annual charity gaming marathon, and it's happening from the 23rd to the 25th of February. This event supports Special Effect, an incredible charity dedicated to bringing the joy and inclusion of gaming to physically disabled individuals. Through adaptive technology, Special Effect is creating a world where everybody can game, but they need your help too. I'm going to be live on Twitch and on YouTube for a 24-hour gaming challenge full of fun, laughter, and it's for a really, really fantastic cause. And for more information about the event and for how you can join us in making a difference, then check out the link in the video description. And if you're feeling generous and you want to contribute right away, you can donate right there too. The money goes straight to the charity. Join us in levelling the playing field and changing lives with Special Effect and GamesBlast 24. Your support means the world to us and to the countless individuals whose lives you'll be impacting. Let's make it a weekend to remember.
I must say, I don't feel too good myself. Look, why don't we get this over with quickly?
By now, the Daleks is like a time capsule, capturing the essence of an era when sci-fi was just beginning to stretch its legs on the small screen. The Daleks quickly became the pinnacle of television terror. They weren't just villains, they were a phenomenon, with Dalek mania sweeping the country. It seems strange to say this now, but in their time they were as big as the Beatles. Everywhere, iconic and unmistakably influential.
Well, can't you sound more like a Dalek?
Yes, in a monotone. You've heard them.
Do you mean
That's it.
This story was where it all began, not just for the Daleks, but for the whole trajectory of Doctor Who. It set the stage for decades of adventures, spin-offs, and a fan base that's as passionate today as it was back in the swinging 60s. This was the story that cemented the idea that bug-eyed monsters was what the public actually wanted in their science fiction. Now fast forward to today, and here we are with the Daleks in Colour. It's not just a copy of the story splashed with every colour of the rainbow. Those of us who remember the colorizations of old, the Laurel and Hardy episodes, for example, will recall just how bad that can be. This is supposedly an attempt at lovingly restoring this classic to the best picture that it can be, and with added special effects, voiceovers, and the latest colorization techniques that bring the world of 60s Who to life in vivid colour. For fans, this is huge. It's like seeing your favourite childhood memory through a brand new lens. There was a buzz, a sense of excitement, like we were rediscovering something that we thought we knew inside out. But it's not just about the nostalgia. It's about bringing something timeless into the modern day, giving it a fresh coat of paint whilst keeping its soul intact. It's a bold move, right? Colorizing such a beloved classic is bound to stir up emotions. Some fans were over the moon, ready to embrace this new look Dalek saga with open arms. Others were a bit more cautious, and even others just flat out hated the idea.
Then he must die. There is no help we can give him.
But the focus behind this release was to help make 60s Who a little more accessible for a modern audience. Did it work, or was this a case of too much change too fast? But before we jump into that, let's just take a look at what you actually get in this box. First off, we have the colorized 75-minute version of the story, but you also get the original 7 episodes in their classic black and white format too. In addition to this, it comes with a brand new 15-minute featurette that delves into the making of the colorization process. Now, I've not had a chance to see this yet, so I can't really comment on it, but it is a nice to have. Perhaps it's not enough to own this box set on its own, however, especially in its steelbook release, which is rather expensive. So this set is 2 discs, and we also have all of the special features from the original DVD release. If you haven't got that, there's some really nice stuff on there, including commentaries and a creation of the Daleks documentary. But for a Doctor Who release, this whole package does feel rather light.
Oh, I'm glad the mountaineering's over.
There'll be some more once we get through this little lot.
Possibly that's because it was originally released as part of the beginning box set, which also included An Unearthly Child and The Edge of Destruction. And of course, both of those also had substantial collection of special features on as well, which made the box set feel like it was better value at the time. But for what it is, it's fine. One thing that many people have been talking about is the art on the box. This is a little bit disappointing, especially on the steelbook release, but many have pointed out that it's a little bit lazy compared to some of the other releases, with the standard edition showing Daleks in the TARDIS, which never happened, and the art on the steelbook itself being just a little bit lackluster. In all honesty, if I was given that as a commission, I'm not sure what I would have done with it, or, whether I could have done anything that was any better. But I do get why people are complaining. Right, let's dive under the bonnet and see what's been tinkered with, shall we? First off, there are the visuals. They've gone all out here. The Daleks now zap with a green energy blast instead of the old school gas clouds. It's visually striking and it brings them into line with other iterations from later series. The rest of the special effects are a little more sensitively done with respect to the original material. There's a nice opening model shot at the beginning, for example, which feels like something that could easily have been created in the 1960s for the show. I quite like these. They don't really get in the way of the storytelling. If anything, they help to enhance the edit. It would have been all too easy to add in modern effects that looked out of place, but that's not what you get here. Now let's talk about the editing, because this was actually what I was more interested in than the colour grade itself. How can you get 3 hours of story down to just the bare essentials in 75 minutes? And they've not just given it a trim either. They've put it on high speed. I mean, it moves along at a breakneck pace now. And this might be jarring for most of us who cherished the original's leisurely storytelling, but for the most part, I actually rather liked it.
He is becoming delirious. I do not understand his words.
There are issues, however. From around the midway point of the story, we start to get these weird edits. It starts with Ian in the Dalek casing, which is edited somewhat like a heist movie. And I don't mind that. It kind of works. But here you start to just feel how much has been removed from the show. Then you get these odd moments where they've decided to add in flashbacks. There's not many of them, but in a show that's 75 minutes long, you don't need them at all. It did feel like this was just padding out the runtime. It did nothing to add to the story, and if anything, it did start to drag down the pacing of what we did have. When you combine that with the scenes like the elevator escape, which made it a little hard to understand what was actually going on in the edit, you do start to wonder if the focus was on the right thing. Now, I'm sure there was some budget constraints or technical requirements that would have put roadblocks in the way to what the team would have been able to do, but the finished edit result here, it just feels a little bit sloppy. Unfortunately, the same is true for the new soundtrack. I'll give the Dalek dialogue a pass here. I think that worked rather well, and it was clearly needed because a lot of the second half of the story is just cut to shreds. But the music was too much, and I'm not the first person to say that. On the whole, I liked the new music, even though it did have a very sort of 80s feel at times, and perhaps would be out of place if you were revisiting this for a second go. The main issue is that much of it was overpowering, and there were sections where you lost dialogue because of it. I think it needed a subtler hand at the helm, and probably a sound edit from somebody who wasn't quite as invested in the music side. It pays, on productions like this, to have more than one set of ears. But then we move on to the colorization, and this is why I picked this up on Blu-ray. And let's face it, this is why we're all here. The colours look beautiful. I've recently watched The Prisoner on Blu-ray, and you could argue that comparing the two, there was a little oversaturation on some of the images in the Daleks. Specifically, the stills that we got before seeing the episode looked an awful lot better than the final production. But there are reasons for that, not least because of the poor quality of the original source. The Prisoner looks impeccable, mostly because it was shot on film, a medium that has a much better dynamic range than videotape and can be scanned at a much higher resolution. The video, on the other hand, well, it doesn't always handle the darker parts of the image very well, and that's why when you see images from the show filmed on videotape, they're often overly lit by today's terms. So the extremes of the image suffer really because of the technical limitations of the time and not because of anything done by the colorization or anything the colorization team could have done anything about. As for what part AI played in this release, had I been able to see the documentary, it may have given me some idea, but it does look like there was some extra sharpening done on these images, and not always to the best effect. There's some haloing around edges, which is a mark of an over-sharpened image here and there. There's also odd artifacts creeping into the images as well that don't appear to be there on the original DVD release. That said, what we get here is very watchable. It might just be something that you kind of have to get used to if you're finding some of the image quality an issue. So is this worth buying? Well, you know, I've gone backwards and forwards on this since the original colorization was released. Ultimately, I bought this because I study film and television, and I think that this is an important historical document, albeit one on video, that'll become an interesting talking point in years to come. I also wanted to have the option of seeing this in the best possible quality.
You're not sorry. You stand here mumbling a lot of words out of your history, but it means nothing. Nothing at all.
And, you know, as much as I like iPlayer, the data rate alone means that it should be at a much better quality on Blu-ray. But I don't think that this is going to be a release that I watch again and again and again. Mostly, that's down to the editing. The fact is, we do have an amazing telling of this story with the Peter Cushing film. Now look, I know it's not the same. I know it has its idiosyncrasies and anachronisms. I know it can hardly be classed as canon, but it doesn't matter. See, I recently picked up the Studio Canal 4K re-releases of these films, and they are glorious. And as much as I like the original series, there is no way that any of the picture quality that we're going to get from AI upscaling is ever going to come close to how good those film scans are. Plus, these releases haven't been hacked around in the edit. They turn the 7-part series into an hour-and-a-half movie that is captivating and well-paced, without the story being let down by having chunks of it taken out. That said, I do applaud the team for what they've done here. I know this was meant to be a proof of concept for a possible run of these things, and from what we hear, this is going to happen in the near future.
Stand by for a general announcement.
It was nice seeing the colorized clips at the end of this as well. And I think some of them looked better than the actual picture quality that we got in the Daleks. Whether that's because of better source material, I'm not sure. Anyone who already had the Daleks on DVD might want to give this one a miss. It will inevitably be put onto a Season 1 box set at some point, and it's already available on iPlayer to watch. And even though I'm interested to see it, I can't imagine the inclusion of the 15-minute documentary is going to be that much of a draw for people to see. Other than that, everything that you get has already been included on the original Daleks DVD, and it might be better to wait for that collection set to buy it again. Let's face it, you're not really missing out. That's what I think. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. Did you enjoy the Daleks in Colour? Are you going to get this DVD, this set? And if so, what is it that's drawing you to it? That's it for this video, but please do join me on the next one, and I'll see you when we go beyond the sofa.